Hey, what's up guys? My name is Michael Westbrook. As always, thank you for watching. Today we're going to be talking about bad tone. Sometimes bad tones can actually be great in the context of a song or in a mix. So today we're going to explore that a little bit. We're going to take a listen to a demo that has a number of quote-unquote bad tones, and then I'm going to show you guys how I got those sounds, and hopefully that'll give you some inspiration or some ideas to come up with different unique tones that might work in different scenarios. All right, let's get into it. So one of the big ideas in this and using bad tones is context. So in solo, a lot of these tones are not going to sound good. They're going to sound, maybe harsh or not full. Nasally might be another way to describe some of these tones. But putting them in the context of a song with other parts, with drums and bass, really gives them a unique character and puts them in a unique place in the mix. Here's our first example on Rhodes. The song kind of starts out with this repeating Rhodes figure, and this tone is a little deceptive because in the mix it doesn't necessarily particularly sound bad. But if you were to solo it out, it sounds kind of nasally and not full at all. Here's what I mean by that, and here's how I accomplished it. So we've got our regular Rhodes sound. This is just Rhodes, no effect right here. All right, so what I did is I ran it through a wah pedal and I kind of found a location that I liked in that. So maybe around here. And you can hear already, it just cuts out a ton of lows. It's real nasally. It's kind of more high mid focused. And, you can play around with this. It's like... That's a little muddier, all the way up. Again, it's all about context. It's cutting out a lot of different frequencies and giving it a very pointed sound. But in the mix, it doesn't necessarily sound that way. Soloed, it sounds pretty bad. So the next tone I want to talk about is one that I got with this. This is a mid-60s J-45. It's a great sounding guitar. It's especially great for finger picking stuff. It just has a really great amount of brightness that helps finger picking stuff cut through and really just get kind of a nice sparkle on it. Now, I didn't take advantage of those rich, nice tones in this guitar because I dampened it down with a bandana here at the bridge. This is actually something I did right when I first started recording years and years ago as an experiment, and I really like the sound, and it's been one of those things that I kind of pull out from time to time. Basically what this does is it gives us a really percussive sound. It kills all the sustain in the guitar. We can get more or less sustain by how we put, the bandana in here and how close we put it to the bridge. But, that takes a little experimenting. You can use other stuff. Some people use foam. You see that a lot with bass players putting foam down near the bridge for that Motown kind of thing. But But yeah, it's a really cool sound, and it gives a really percussive sound, and it's a really unique and really kind of interesting element in a track. Here's what it sounds like. I mean, you can hear just absolutely no sustain. Again, if we move this and stretch this out so it's maybe not touching the strings quite as much, then we might get a little more sustain. Some of the strings are sustaining more than others. Again, it's kind of one of those things you experiment with, but you know, in the end, it's kind of a bad tone. I mean, we're using a great guitar and we're just killing all of the sustain, but in the right context, it works. This sound came from the Smokey Amp. It's a 1-watt guitar amp, solid state, runs off a 9-volt battery, has a plastic speaker here, but will also push a 412 cabinet or any other speaker cabinet you may have laying around. I did a whole video on these things. They're really cool, really cheap and affordable. Just a cool sound to have around. I'm not going to use it all the time, but for something that I want a little edge to or just a different kind of sound, it works great. Another use for these is reamping guitar parts. Maybe you have a fuller sound that you recorded with a larger amp, but you want to add a little grit to it. You want to add just a little something nasty to it. This is a great thing to kind of blend into that to give it some edge. The next approach is probably one of the more famous sounds, and that's running your guitar direct. You've heard this sound from everybody from Jimi Hendrix to David Gilmour to Nile Rodgers. It's been heard on countless records. That being said, it's not necessarily the most inspiring sound. It's kind of sterile and flat sounding. For this sound, I ran my Strat into a Neve style preamp and then into an 1176 compressor. While I do think it makes a big difference for this particular sound to have a great preamp, try what you have. I'm always a big fan of using the gear that you have and seeing what great tones you can get out of it. We've got a couple more tones to talk about. The next one is the picking part on the chorus. For that, I use the Tricera chorus on my H9, and it's really out of tune. It's like the chorus is almost has a vibrato thing to it, and it's pulling it really far out of tune. By itself, you know, I would play this sound and I'm like, man, it just sounds out of tune. I actually didn't even really tune my guitar or check the tuning on my guitar when I tracked this because it didn't really matter. It's being pulled so far out of tune by the chorus pedal that it doesn't matter as much. I find a lot of times by using this type of sound to double a part, maybe it's a melody or a lead line or something like that, it kind of adds a different texture to it. And especially if it's a stereo chorus, it gives me a really wide sound. This particular part is a little more out front, but especially if you do a part with this type of sound tucked back in so you don't really know exactly what it is, it can add a lot of dimension to your tracks. This last tone comes from a pedal that was built by Nick Greer. This is, I think he calls it the Bearded Man Friend. I actually had Nick build this for me. I kind of told him an idea, was like, hey, I'd like a pedal like this. It's kind of a germanium fuzz boost kind of thing. And he dreamed this thing up. I think from my understanding, it's basically kind of 2 treble booster type circuits, and then this is a cool part about it. It has this frequency click switch. Basically what this does to my ear is it starts cutting out bass. So this would be the most full sound, and then as we turn it down this way, we're getting less and less low end, and it kind of starts sounding similar to the wah type sound that we had on the Rhodes, where it just gets a little more pointed, a little more focused. And I find it to be great for lead sounds because we don't really need all of the low end. That's kind of a big idea behind a lot of these bad sounds, quote unquote bad sounds, is that they're not full range sounds. They're just a little more focused frequency wise, which in a track can help a lot. It gives a lot of other things space to be able to fill up those frequencies, and things aren't stepping on each other as much. So especially for lead tones, I think you'll find that you don't necessarily need as much low end or as much low mids as you think you might. Of course, this depends on the track. It depends on what style of music you're playing, but it's all about context. Again, that's the big idea with all of these tones. I wouldn't necessarily go use some of these sounds on certain types of tracks or on a gig if they didn't fit. You've got to find the right context, the right time to use these bad tones. That's going to do it for this one. Hopefully it gives you some new and inspiring ideas for coming up with great tones. Remember, a good tone in the wrong context is still bad, but a bad tone in the right context can be so good. All right, until next time, I'll see you out there.